So hello Achiever, today it is an awesome day. I am with Joseph McClendon III. Hello Joseph.
Hello, thank you so much for having me, David.
How are you today?
I could not be better. Yourself?
It's an awesome day.
Well, you're in my town now, so it is awesome.
Yeah. Before to ask you some questions, I would like to know more about your story and how did you become one of the top speakers, and especially your struggles, because a lot of people are thinking, oh, the successful people are lucky, it's easy for them, and I'd love to share struggles and how you overcame it. So who are you?
Well, first off, I think it's just the opposite. I think if you poll, and I have polled, and most of my friends and people that I know that are successful or have accomplished a lot have gone through a lot of struggles, and oftentimes come through times that were insurmountable, if you will. And there are several books that are written about it. I remember reading one not too long ago, forgive me, I don't remember the title, but it was about the amount of people who became successful as a result of having been fired from a job. And at the time they thought it was the bottom. And for myself, I grew up in middle class, you know, I had a great family and great parents and everything, but when I was 18 years old, 3 grown men tried to take my life because of the color of my skin. And it robbed me of my confidence and my self-esteem and my self-worth. And I wound up homeless. I live in Los Angeles now, but I lived in a place not too far from here called Lancaster, and I lived in a cardboard box. And what changed it for me was somebody gave me a book. And it was somebody that I didn't know, was a kind person that gave me this book, and the book was called Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. Greatest book ever. And I was, 18 years old and didn't want to read it, but he almost forced me to read it, and I begrudgingly read it. And when I read it, it changed everything. It changed how I thought about myself, and I recognized that I could change myself, how I thought, how I felt about myself, and how I viewed the world around me. And I did some of the fundamentals in the book, which 2 things happened. Number one, doing them, my life changed, I changed, and I started to produce more. But it also made me recognize that it wasn't just the knowledge. And I remember thinking this at the time, David, that it wasn't just what was in that book, it's what I did. And when I went back to that person to thank him and to tell him, to ask him what I could do for him, what he said to me was, what you do for me is what I've done for you. He said, you help as many people as you possibly can change their lives. And at first I didn't take it seriously, but as I grew and started to recognize that's my calling, and that's what I love to do, and that's why I do what I do now.
It's amazing. And maybe 80% of the people I interviewed said me, if I have one book to recommend,
Yes.
it is Think and Grow Rich. And I don't know, it's amazing. It's
Yes.
the same book for
Over
everyone.
and over again, because it's the fundamentals. It's like learning how to walk. If you want to make changes and understand that human beings can change, and just the fundamentals of personal development are all right there.
Yeah. And you started to do speeches, right?
No, not right away. As a matter of fact, I was in survival mode, so I just wanted to have a roof over my head and have a girlfriend, and have some fundamentals. And but my dream back then was I wanted to be a musician. I wanted to be a professional musician. I wanted to make records. I wanted to do all that stuff. And so that I got a job. I started working. I started doing things, and that was what I pursued for many, many years. And using those principles, made my way into the music world and started doing that first. And then I got a recording deal in 1990. Yeah, in 1990, and the record company. They gave us some money. They started to produce the record and everything, and then the record company changed hands. They sold to another company, and I got my person that represented me left the company, and I got so I was stuck in there, and I couldn't make music because the contract wouldn't let me do it. So that's when I decided, I've got to do something else, and that's when I started doing what I do now. Because all along I had been working with a couple of my mentors, as you know, Tony Robbins, and teaching a little bit and learning a lot. And I just started doing this and wrote my first book, and that became very successful. And then
What was your first book?
My first book was called Unlimited Power of Black Choice. Yeah. and it was a bestseller back in '96. And, yeah, way long time ago. And then from there, I started enjoying. Well, first, I also got a degree in psychology, and I opened a practice in Los Angeles, seeing every known weirdo you could possibly imagine. And I say that jokingly, because people have challenges all over the place. And I became very proficient in helping people get over fears and phobias and emotional challenges and those type of things. And again, I was working with Tony at the same time as well. And I started to recognize, well, gosh, one-on-one is great, and I still love to do that. But to reach more people, I needed to have larger audiences. And so I wrote some more books and started doing more of that. And that's kind of what I do now.
And so there is a lot of people who are trying to become speakers, experts, or authors. Why did you succeed in this field?
That's a great question. If I was to be honest with you, and I hope this doesn't sound too noble, it's because I care. It's because I care. I do have technique, and I think that's important, but I think what's more important is to care about your audience. You know, we are just now, I'm creating a speaker's performance school, if you will, to teach people to teach people to speak and to present and that type of thing, and teach some of the techniques that are not out there. And I've had some great mentors that have taught me and that I've learned from and observed. But I think the answer to your question is because I really do. I love people and I care about my audience, and that makes the biggest difference. That with the technique makes the biggest difference.
So yeah, the first step is to care about your audience.
Yes.
And when you have that, what did you change? Who did you become? Maybe some traits you developed in yourself to have this kind of success. Did you have developed humor, perseverance? What did you develop?
Well, again, I've had lots of mentors, and some of my mentors were not even speakers. Some of my mentors were humorous people. I really like David Letterman. I like Eddie Murphy. But I also like Martin Luther King, and one of my mentors, Anthony Robbins, and several other speakers around. And I think to answer your question, who I became is a conglomeration of who I brought to the table, meaning all my years of being a musician and who I believe I am, as well as some of the traits that I borrowed from other people. But I think probably, again, I have to go back to, I've got to look at, there are specific things. I always tell people when I'm speaking, because I like to give everything away. I don't want there to be any secrets. And I'll tell people, watch what I do. Watch what I say. Everything that I do from the time that I start to the time that I finish has a reason and a purpose, and you can see it, and I'll share it with you. And when people watch it, because that's what I did. I watched, and I had people teach me, but then all the way back to Think and Grow Rich, it's what you do, it's what you practice, it's what you rehearse that'll produce yourself.
Yeah. And can you share me one of your struggles you had in this moment and how you overcame it? Did you have some fears to not succeed, for example?
I didn't have fears of not succeeding, but I had, believe it or not, an extreme fear of rejection, or what some might call stage fright. Believe it or not. I didn't like to call it that at the time, but I just get so nervous before I go on stage.
And now?
Now I fall asleep before I go on stage, literally. But it's because of something, I believe in, even if whenever I speak, if anybody has ever, if I've had the privilege of speaking with somebody, they know that I'm not going to just give a speech. They know that I'm not just going to help them feel good. I'm going to teach them to do something, because that's so important. And so using a technique, I ridded myself of the fear of rejection, ridded myself of stage fright, and replaced it with relaxation and calmness to the point that before I go on stage, literally I'm yawning. And it's a technique that's it's simple, not necessarily easy, and if you practice it, if you do it, it just works. And that, I got to be honest with you, allows me to be spontaneous and fun and relaxed and be able to go anywhere I want on stage, because I'm not worried about anything, or I'm not stressed.
Yeah, great. I have a lot of questions to ask you, so
Sure,
I have to choose. How do you prepare your speeches?
Again, I keep going back to this. I have a system. I have a format or an outline that I can prepare in minutes, if not seconds. This happens to me sometimes. I'll go somewhere, and I'll be in the audience of somewhere, and somebody will go, hey, Joseph is here. Joseph, come up here and say a few words. And from the time that I leave the seat to the time that I hit the podium, I can put together what I'm going to say, because I have a system to do that. But the long answer to your question, in terms of preparing, there is a before, during, and after of any presentation. I don't like to look at it as a speech, because speech is just that, you're just talking. I believe that a presentation, you're going to connect with your audience through caring, through love, through and then you're going to also deliver content, but then you're going to touch them in an emotional place that makes them not just want to do something, but thrive on going and doing something, because that's where the change is made. It's not just listening. So I put all my components, I put a beginning to the presentation, a middle, and then an ending all together. I have a little outline that I go through, and I put it all in there. And then that way I don't have to rely on a script. I don't have to rely on a preset thing, and they're all different. It makes it fun for me, and it gets to be spontaneous. So, but then way before all of that, first off, that is what I do at home, or before I go on, as I'm manufacturing the presentation. But before I go on stage, there are things that I say to myself, and there are certain ways that I move my body, and that I feel, and then I just relax, And because of what I said before, that I worked on myself to be able to be calm, that kicks in automatically. I don't have to make myself that way. It kicks in automatically. And then I prepare myself, say a few things, and rock and roll.
Yeah, it's great. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you. I don't think I've ever had anybody ask me all those questions about presentation, especially, but it's poignant now because we're creating something to teach other people that.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I would love to know, because you are not the first one to read Think and Grow Rich. There is a lot of people who read this book, and not everyone are succeeding. And I wonder a lot why some people have the content, they follow great leaders, they have the books, they have the audiobooks, and they don't succeed. And I would like to answer that to help more my audience.
Here's what I would say. The simple answer is the reason that they don't succeed is because they don't apply what they learned. We've all heard the saying that knowledge is not power, and it's true. Knowledge is just potential power. There's knowledge in books. There's knowledge. Somebody told me that, and I believe this, that 80% of all of the knowledge since the dawn of time is on the internet somewhere. If you want to know how many stitches there are in a soccer ball, you can look it up, and that information is there. And the how-to information and the how-to books, it's called shelf help. Instead of self-help, people get the book and they put it on their shelf, and they may read it, but they don't do what's in the book. I think the biggest difference in why people don't and why people do is in the actual activity that they do with the knowledge. I always say that knowledge is stored information. Wisdom is knowledge that is acted upon. It's applied knowledge. So if you learn something, then do something about it. And the best books for me, and that's the way it was in Think and Grow Rich. And every single book that I write, and every single presentation that I do, I'm going to have people do something in the moment, and then I'm going to give you something to do after, so you get a result. And in Think and Grow Rich, that was in that book, it said, do this, 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 and this. And that's what I did. And as soon as I did, I felt better, and things started to change.
Yeah. So do you suggest to read the book, and when you have an exercise, you do it?
Yes.
Until you don't read the next before.
If that's what the instruction is, you see, it's called discipline. And discipline, to me, means doing the prescribed activity as prescribed, even if it's difficult, no matter what. I repeat myself. Doing the prescribed activity as prescribed, even and especially if it's difficult, no matter what. That means if it says to lift that weight 50 times, then rest for 10 minutes, and then lift it another 50 times, then you do it. And when it's, repetition number 20, and it's hard to do, the instruction said to do it 50 times. Do it 50 times no matter what. And And activity means don't just do it once, do it how many times it said to do it. And so, and again, to me, that's the answer to your question. And it's maybe it's a two-part answer. The reason why more people aren't successful, for lack of a better term, is because they don't do what they know, what they've learned. But the underlying question is, why don't they do what they know?
Yeah.
And that answer is multifaceted because people are multifaceted. People may feel like they can't. People may feel tired. People may not have the energy. People may feel like because somebody said to them when they were 10 years old bothers them. People may have fear of failure, fear of success. There's a whole lot of different reasons. But all of those reasons can be dealt with. And I always say there's a difference between simplicity and ease. I'm not saying that things are easy, but they're easier than the school of hard knocks to do it once or twice, or to do it in the very beginning to get that stuff out of the way. So life is much simpler than we've been led to believe. If you do the simple things now, then it's going to be easier for you later.
Great. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
What do you think about the food and the power of food in your body?
You really want to go there?
Yeah.
It is my. It is probably. It's a toss-up for me between what is more important, the personal development side, teaching that, or teaching people the health and wellness, because they're both important. However, I will say that if you don't have your health, you're not going to perform as well over here. If you have diminished health, then you're going to have diminished energy, and all kinds of things are going to be a result of that. But just from a basic format, if we're looking at the ability to go further, faster, your health, your wellness is a direct link to that. So I would say that you got to have this foundation, but most people don't want to hear that. Most people want to hear, how do I make more money? How do I get a better relationship? How do I get a better car? how do I do all that stuff now? And they'll, drive themselves crazy, staying up late and doing all kinds, and they'll run their health down trying to get here. And the old saying is, some people pick the fruit and some people study the root. I say, pick the fruit and eat it while you study the root. Do them both at the same time. Let's get healthy while you do the other. I'm not saying you got to, stop your goals and everything and get healthy right now. I'm saying let's do it all at the same time. And you'll move further faster.
Yeah, and what will be the difference when we eat healthy? Because we see some people who are succeeding without healthy food, and they think, oh, I can do the same. So why, according to you, we have to have a healthy food? What? Well,
there are exceptions to the rule. However, there are no exceptions in the end. And I'll give you an example. Bill Gates. He was for many, many years, I remember hearing about him that he lived on junk food and all that stuff, and his health suffered. In the end, it took his life. And I know a lot of people, and I'm not saying that, and as I said, there are exceptions. There are people that can smoke cigarettes into their hundreds and never get sick, but the majority, the vast majority of people are not going to be able to do that. And my belief is that what we need to do is to take a look at how we cause ourselves to function at our optimum. If you got a Ferrari, you don't put water in the gas tank. You put the best gasoline you possibly can in. Why? Because that car was designed to run on the best gasoline. This body that we have is designed to run on the best food. And you can put other food into it, and it's still going to run, but it's not going to run as well. And so I think that in this day and age, it's absurd for people to go, well, wait a minute, I'll just eat junk food and expect the best. It's absurd. And it's logical to say that I can eat junk food or not eat so well and not take care of myself and I can still succeed. Yes, you can do that, but it's going to be harder. It's going to be much harder.
And some people say to us that there is a link between healthy food and the ability to be connected to a kind of spirituality. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think the same. And first off, I want to point out that I believe it's not just the food. There are 8 principles. It's the air we breathe. I call these the 8 pillars of health and wellness. The air we breathe, the water we drink, the food we eat, the thoughts we think, the moves we make, the words we speak, the things we seek, the sleep we take and the thoughts we think. And what happens is when you change any one of those things, then it changes everything. It changes it just a little shift in one of those areas will change everything. So food is just one portion of it. It's a big portion of it. But the most important thing is the air we breathe. Try to stop breathing. It's over. You know. But the reality is in one of our workshops, I teach people how to breathe. Most people don't. We think, well, I breathe all the time. But most people, in my opinion, about 80% of the people out there are getting 2/3 and maybe even half of the oxygen that they can get. And it's the most important things. Your cells need it. You need it for energy. You need it for all that stuff. They're breathing in such a way that they're getting a third to half less oxygen than their body should be having. And if you just change that one thing, change how they breathe, their head gets clearer, they think better, they have more energy.
Do you have an exercise that you can show on this video?
I guess I can. I'll watch this, okay? And if you, I think you saw me at one of the workshops, so you may be different.
Yeah.
Take a deep breath right now.
No?
Yeah, right now. One more. Okay, so you're actually better than most. Okay, because here's what most people do. And again, I'm not going to assume that because you saw me do this at the health seminar, that this is the reason why. But you're breathing better than most. But here's how most people breathe. I'm going to exaggerate a little bit. Most people, when I say take a deep breath, they go like this.
Yeah.
Okay. And they breathe up here. But our lungs are shaped like this. They're bigger on the bottom. They're narrow at the top. And what happens is when people breathe like that, chest comes up, shoulders come up, chest comes out, head comes back, and their stomach goes in. It's the optimum of the way that the lungs are supposed to work. The stomach should come out when we breathe. And yours is, by the way, a little bit, when you're doing that. And it's because we're filling up the bottom of our lungs first, and it's our diaphragm that pulls down that makes air come in. But when most people are breathing, they're going, and they're pushing their diaphragm in, which is cutting off the bottom third of their lungs. And they're not getting the oxygen that they need. And it's the most important thing that we do. You'll see people, they're tired all the time. If I just show people how to breathe and then teach them the process of doing it how X amount of times a day, then it won't take very long before they get used to it because they feel good and their body will adapt to doing it better. So we call it deep diaphragmatic breathing versus stress breathing up top.
So we have to learn to breathe with this part of the...
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Breathe in, a simple way of saying it is breathe into your stomach. People just go, well, it's not where my stomach is, but yeah, but if I don't breathe air into it, but if you allow yourself to do it, then your stomach has to come out because it displaces your intestine and your guts and all that stuff for your diaphragm to come down. That's the way we're supposed to. Watch a baby sleep or watch any human being sleep. When we lay down, that's the way our Creator made us so that when we're laying prone, when we're laying out, we have to breathe that way. And that's the most creative time. That's the time that our body is rejuvenating itself and all those things.
And how many times per day you suggest
all day. The exercise I have people do is to breathe a certain way. I always tell people, get your cell phone, and every time it goes off, stop and take 10 deep diaphragmatic breaths. Do it and reset it for another hour, and then do it again. Then pretty soon you'll find yourself breathing that way normally. But you got to do it.
It becomes unconscious habit.
Yeah. Anything that's repeated is going to become a habit. Yeah.
Okay. What do you suggest about sleep?
Well, it's not so much a suggestion as much as a result of doing several other things a certain way or a different way than most of us are normal, your sleep will change. I sleep about 4.5, maybe 5 hours a night, and I've slept that way for 25 years now. And I wake up energized and excited and alert, and I go right to sleep. I have no sleeping problems at all. I sleep on airplanes. I was telling this to somebody the other day, the longest I sleep these days is when I get on an airplane. I can get on an airplane and fly to France, and I'll sleep from the time I leave Los Angeles to the time I land in Charles de Gaulle, straight through. So I can sleep as long as I want to, but I don't have to. I wake up every morning with no alarm clock, eyes wide open.
Because of these 8 factors, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. A lot of people have fears. How to overcome fears?
The quick answer is, first, it's always 3 things. Number 1, know what you want. That's a number 1 thing. And I'll give you an example. People come to me I've done this for many, many years, help people get over fears and phobias and that kind of thing. And traditionally, I'll ask somebody, well, what do you want? And they'll go, I don't want to be afraid of dogs anymore. And I'll say, Okay, well, what do you want? And they go, I'm afraid of dogs, and I don't want to be afraid of dogs anymore. And I'll go, okay, well, great. What do you want? And they go, I want to lose my fear of dogs. And I'll go, okay, well, great. What do you want? And they'll go, I'm telling you. And I'll go, no, you're telling me what you don't want. Because I know, because they're going, fear of dogs, fear of dogs, fear of dogs, they're telling me what they don't want. So if I get them to the point that I go, what do you really want? And they go, I want to be able to hold a puppy and feel excited about it. Then three things happen. Number one, I know I'm pointing them in the right direction. And I can give them what they want, not what I say they want. And they feel it, which is number two. And then number three, they experience what they want, and I can capture that. You know, it's not a joke. I always tell people, if you got a fear of dogs, guess what's going to be in my office when you come there? A dog. You got a fear of heights, we're going to go up skydiving. You get a fear of closed places, we're going to go in an elevator. And the reason being is because I need to, I practice something called the neurosciences. And versus taking your time and stretching it out through time, people, and you know, I've worked with a lot of people who've been in front of other therapists and been with other therapists for years and years and years and haven't gotten the result. So number one, help them figure out what they want. Number two, help them figure out what it is that stops them. And it's not the dog. If they say it's a fear of dogs, it's not. It's the thought of the dog. It's not the dog. Because those people are horrified when there's no dogs around. They spend their lives, and I'm just using dogs as an example, sheltering themselves and keeping themselves away from dogs. So is it the fear of dogs? Or is it the dog? No, it's the thought of the dog. And as soon as I can get people to recognize it's themselves that are doing it to them, not the dog, then that's step number two. Help figure out what's stopping them. And then number three is to bust open that thought and emotional pattern, meaning help them, while they're in it, get away from it. We call it a pattern interrupt. Because if I interrupt somebody when they're doing anything, they're no longer where they were. You know, if I go, right now you and I are talking and an explosion happens over there, guess what? Our focus is over there, but we're not in this conversation. But that's a very valuable moment, because while we're going, what's going on over here? We're very curious. We're open. And so, which is the fourth step, is that to put into that place what they want. So to take from the very beginning and to put it in there. I'm giving you the broad strokes. Put that in that place. And then the next step is to condition it and do it over and over again to make it so that that is the place that the nervous system defaults to. And do it over and over again, condition it till pretty soon they're no longer it. If somebody comes in and they got a fear of dogs, and in less than an hour's time, they're going to be holding a puppy.
And how do you, you mean pattern interrupt, right?
Yes.
How do you do that, for example, with
It's
fear of dog?
1,000 different ways, you know. I mean, I'm
You have an example, for example?
yeah, I'll throw a glass of water in somebody's face, or yell at them, or you know, have somebody else walk in, or set off I used to have this thing, still have it, that is it's a can of air with a horn on it that's sitting underneath my desk. And all I have to do is push that, and all of a sudden, that's going to interrupt their pattern. Anything, I'll jump up, I'll grab them, shake them around. I mean, I'm spontaneous. I'll do anything.
So you interrupt the pattern, and then what you will do?
Well, the easy answer is to have them experience what they experienced in the very beginning. In other words, when I help them figure out what it is that they want, and they go, "Oh, I want to hold a puppy," then in that moment they're already there. So you can do it through anchoring. You can do it through repetition. You can, most of the time I'll use an anchoring process, which is to bring them right back to that place. And just to literally go, okay, calm down right now, and what do you really want? And they'll go, and then we'll do it again. I mean, again, there's so much more to it, and I'm certainly not doing justice by saying, you know, you just do these certain things. There's quite a bit more to it, but...
This is a short process.
Yeah.
Do you have sometimes bad mood?
I'm not going to say I have bad mood. What I have is, I'm human.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're
yeah.
Truly?
True. Yes. Contrary to popular belief. Gosh, I have times when there are a lot of things that will happen. I'll give you an example. Here's what I would consider what you might call a bad mood. Something stressful will happen.
Yeah.
Perfect example. Okay. So I'll say yes. However, mine are extremely, extremely short, habitually now. And that's what we want. I'm not saying that...
It is my second question. How do you shift it?
Well, because of what I've done a process that I've done. Several processes. One in particular, something I call the stop technique, which is one of the things that we teach at our seminars, which is to replace a bad emotion with maybe a reoccurring emotion, fear, anger, frustration, whatever, with a great emotion, and make it so that the bad emotion or something that happens triggers you to feel good. And I'll give you an example of how it works. It's just a long process, but too long for us to explain here, but I'll give you an example of the end result. I was just in Italy 3 weeks ago, and my promoter and business partner and I had to fly to London. Yeah. And so the car picked us up at the hotel in Italy, drove us an hour and a half to the airport, got out of the car, went through security, went to go through passport check, and I realized I didn't have my phone. I left my phone in the car. And in that moment, I was in a bad mood. In that moment, I panicked. I'm in a foreign country. My business partner had already gone through the line. He was already on the other side. And I had no way, and for a second, it's just like, I got no phone. And it's like, you know, have you ever lost your phone? Yeah, it's just like, for a second. But then within, seriously, 10 seconds, maybe 15 seconds of panicking, my brain went, hey, well, now I get to get an iPhone 5. And that's how quickly I got in a good mood. And I use that as an example because, I mean, that's pretty serious stuff, losing your phone, you know,
yeah,
especially in another...
I did that 2 months ago in the taxi. The taxi was leaving, and my iPhone 4.
Right.
I have an iPhone 5 now.
Okay. Now, by the way, how long did it bother you that you didn't have your phone?
How long?
How long did you worry about it? Did you go, oh, no, I don't have my phone, what am I going to do?
Maybe 2 hours.
Yeah, see, me it was 10 seconds, 15 seconds. And what I'm saying is that's a result of what I teach.
Yeah.
Because I believe I can't teach theory, I've got to practice what I preach. And I'm not saying I was ecstatic about it, I was happy about it, but one of the things that I did, I went, hey, well, because I was in a better mood now, but then my brain started to work. And instead of worrying about it, my brain started going, okay, well, what do I do? And so I went into the lounge, and I sent an email to my business partner. And I know he looks at his emails on his phone, and he called the taxi company, and they were too far gone, so they found that he got the phone, and then they overnighted it to us to the next destination. So not only did I feel better, but you know, I got to think clearer, and I don't have that worry and that stress.
Great. So you build a kind of habit,
yes,
to shift quickly, and it's more easier.
Yes, it's one of the things that we teach at one of our workshops called the A Factor, which is what I call emotional mechanics, which is a way to manage your own emotions. Manage meaning to predetermine what your response is. And a response is different than a reaction. A reaction is no thought. Response is you think about it, you know, even if it's for a second. So predetermine what your response is going to be to anything that happens. So therefore, when bad things happen, or unfortunate things happen, or things happen that are undesirable, you know what your response is going to be. Like I said, on stage, for most people, they go, you got to go in front of, 10,000 people. Most people go, oh no. For me, it's just like, cool. And I literally I feel it right now. I literally get calmed down because I've conditioned myself to be that way. And it's a very simple tool.
Yeah, thank you. You have a book just there. Can I take it?
Yeah.
To show that? Yeah.
Get happy now.
Get happy now. So, how can I get happy now?
Well,
I am.
You are right now.
Yeah, but
you are right now.
How the people can get happy now?
Get the book and read it. Number one, and number two, do what's in the book. I wrote the book with specific things to do in the book, but because we're on camera, I'll tell you a couple things. First off, everybody, happiness is not the goal. Happiness is the journey.
Yeah.
Okay? It's not, I'm going to work really hard and then I'm going to be happy. That's a recipe for disaster. And everybody has their own brand of happiness. And it can be used in many, many aspects of our lives. You know, I do a lot of business training. And businesses bring me in because they want to help for themselves and for their teams to be more effective. More effective at what they do, if it's making something, or typing something, or searching something, or sales, or whatever it is. They want to be more effective. But it's still the same thing. They're not effective because they're not in what I call the zone. The zone is, and I work with sports figures and people from all walks of life. And so I'll use a sports example as an example. When you work with somebody, say like a basketball player or a golfer or something like that, they always say the same thing. Yeah, when I'm in the zone, I don't, everything else, nothing else matters. I'm focused on this, and everything slows down, and that's called being happy. You know, the example I like to use is when I grew up, I was quite a lazy kid. You know, I just was. I didn't like to do my homework. I didn't like to do my chores. I was just lazy. And I hated with a passion to get up early in the morning. School days, forget it. It was just horrible that I look back on it now, but it was just how I was as a kid. But I used to love to go fishing. We grew up in Hawaii, and I loved to go fishing. I couldn't tell you what 7 times 7 was. I couldn't tell you what any of my multiplication, but if you asked me what kind of fish that was or what it ate or where it lived, I could tell you everything. If I knew I was going to go fishing the next morning, I'd get my work done, I'd get my homework done, and I'd get up at 4:30 in the morning while it was dark outside with no alarm clock because I was happy. That level of happiness. And all I'm saying now is everybody has that in their lives in many, many different things. Even if it is, relaxing or watching television, you have an area of your life that if money and time were no object, you do it all the time. And so through the neurosciences and something called neuroplasticity, meaning how our brain is flexible, to take that same emotion called happiness and put it in the areas where you're not effective. In other words, salespeople have fear of rejection. What if you can take that place where they have no fear and put it in there? And I just call happiness, it's different for everybody, but most people don't know what it is. If I ask 100 people, what is it that makes you happy? They always go like this. Well, my kids no. I like to ride my motorcycle. And they guess at it, which means they don't know. It's not right on the tip of their tongue. But when they, and again, I'm not trying to sell books, but when you read the book, you get the opportunity to list it and put it down exactly what it is. And now we have a menu to go to. So when they go, what does make me happy? Well, my children make me happy. I like to go skiing. I love to do, be with my wife or my husband. I love to, shoot bow and arrow. And they got all that stuff right there. But as they seek it and as they think about it, they feel it. And that's the important part, is for people to recognize that getting happy now is simple as thinking about what it is that makes you happy. You're happy right now. And anybody can do it. I always jokingly say that I don't care how bad a mood you're in, how depressed you are, if you value money and I give you $1 million, you're going to get happy. You're going to go, whoa, thanks. And you're not going to be sad anymore. So getting happy now is not really the question. It's getting happy, staying happy long enough to do a process so that the happiness becomes your default. What I just told you about the phone is because I'm happy. I was happy. It's just like I get to get a new iPhone because I haven't had a reason to get an iPhone 5. Since I love my iPhone 4 because I got happy.
I would love to have your opinion about one thing. It was a challenge for me to come in the USA and meet so amazing people. I am reaching my goal, and sometimes I felt less happiness than before. And it was hard for me to feel that. I'm reaching my goal and I'm not happy. And do you have some...
Absolutely. Here's the reason. I'm going to tell you why, and then I'm going to tell you what to do. Here's the reason why. It's because you didn't set what the next thing is. In other words, the old example is when the men that went to the moon, when they came back to Earth, most of them got depressed. Because what do you do after you've gone to the moon? What makes people happy is what you're going to get, what's going to happen, what you're looking forward to. Remember, it's the journey. It's not what you get. So you're going, I got my goal and I'm not happy. Well, proof. It's not the goal that makes you happy. It's the achieving the goal. So that's why. But here's what you do to change it. What's next for you? What's the next greatest thing? You know, you shared with me before, you've got all this stuff, and now you're going to take all this information from all these wonderful people that you've gotten all this information from, and you're going to put it in a place where other people can access it. What do you think about that? How do you feel about that? How do you feel about when that's done?
Yeah, happy.
Yeah, look at you. Your eyes went up like that and you got happy, okay? And that's what you're after. So the key to it is, and then by the way, that's going to come to fruition too. There's going to be a day when that's done. So instead of waiting next time till that's done, plan something ahead of it. I said this, I was in Finland, I was in a whole Europe tour about 3 weeks ago, and I was in Finland, and they kind of asked me the same question, and I said, well, I set myself up to feel happy all the time. You know, as I said before, I'm a musician and still love to play music, and one of my favorite instruments is bass guitar. And so last year, actually the year before last, I said, well, I'm going to complete my collection, and there were 4 new bass guitars that I wanted. And people go, well, why do you need more than one? Well, why do you need more than one pair of shoes? You know, you need them. So instead of going and getting, and they're very expensive, they're very rare, and they're custom made. So instead of going, make me these 4 basses, what I said was, make me one, and they take a year to be made. So I ordered all 4, actually I ordered 3 of them, but I had them delivered. One was a year, and then another one was 6 months after that, another one 6 months after that, and then I just ordered one, the last one, and it's going to be done 6 months from now. So guess what? For 2 years, I get to get another bass. I get to get another bass. And as silly as that sounds, I'm happy. And in the back of my mind, it's going. You know, that's what I'm going towards. And people can do that. You don't have to get a bass or anything expensive. You can go, you know, I'm going to, whatever it is that you want, place it in your subconscious mind that you're going to get that you're just going to go after. Put the carrot on the stick, and you're going to, it's one way of keeping an undercurrent of happiness, because it's an expectation of something wonderful happening. So instead of waiting till you get this goal of having all this information in this site and so on, what's after that? What's after that? And keep it going.
Great.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, it works.
It works. How the people can follow you?
A couple ways. I have a website.
Like that?
Yeah, you can do that. You can get the book. You can get this book on Amazon. And by the way, I'm such a stickler on, I want to make sure that people do it. The book doesn't just come with the book, but I set it up to when you go there and you get the book, there's a link and there are videos of how to do the exercises in there. And you can actually get a free chapter of the book if you go to success.com. You'll find the book on there, or you can go to Amazon and get the book. And what my suggestion to do is to get the ebook. You know, I mean, you can get the ebook, you can get the hard copy. I say get them both. Get the hard copy and listen to it while you read it, because you can underline. You're gonna want to do that. But the most important thing is just to do what's in the book. And I can be reached at makeyourfate.com or josephmcclendon.com. You know, we've got lots of stuff on YouTube and things like that as well. So I'm pretty easy to find.
Do you have some life lessons you would like to share to youth?
Life lessons. I have these simple rules, if you will. I shouldn't say they're rules. They're kind of, I've got lots of life lessons.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, like don't pull into a dark parking lot at night, no matter what, when there's 3 ugly guys ready to kick your butt. I mean, it was a life lesson. I guess maybe I'll answer your question this way. I'll say I have some very, very basic life advice, and they are live, love, laugh, learn, and lighten the heck up. And what that means is you're on this planet to live. You're not here to, and live doesn't mean sitting down watching television, or as I call it, the electronic income reducer. You know, live means get out and live your life. You only got one of them. Move your body, interact with other people, do things. Do things. You know, from the very first question that you asked me about the book, and what I learned in the book was to do. You know, don't just learn, don't just sit and do. You do something, interact. So live your life. Love, we already talked about that. Love yourself, love as many people as you possibly can. It's what we're here for. Love is happiness. It's what makes us human beings. It's what we're all after. Find a way to do as much of it as you possibly can. Laugh for all of the right reasons, meaning when we laugh, we're healthier, we're happier, it makes the blood flow, we breathe better and all those things. Laugh as much as possible. We create the energy, we attract more and all those things. Learn, always be a student. To this day, I still spend a lot of money on seminars and workshops and books and recordings and things like that, because learning is, the day you stop learning is the day you start going the other direction. And learning, again, does not mean sitting in front of the television and watching a sitcom or some other, show. I'm not knocking them, but use it in moderation. Learn stuff. You should be learning something every day. At the end of the day, you should say, what did I learn? And you should go back over it. And you should go back and go, well, this is what I learned. The mind is the most unbelievable computer, and it's got endless storage. And, when you look at people that are, I study now people that are in their hundreds, and, I met somebody who was 107 years old, sharp as a tack. And I asked, what makes you so sharp, as opposed to, I see 60, 70-year-old people who are they're done, they're going through it. And he goes, they always say the same thing, because I learn, because I'm always growing, because I'm always curious. So learn. And the last thing is lighten up. Don't take everything so serious. It's just like, I said this, I was doing another interview a few weeks ago, and they said, well, what do you have to say about all this violence that's going on and everything? And I said, well, first off, what did we expect? We have spoon-fed 3 generations of children violence and video games and videos and movies and so on and so forth, and we taught them that the most important thing is to care about only yourself and all those things. And so this is the result. But that's the result of all of that, but it doesn't have to stay that way. And what I mean by that is it's honestly time for people to go and just relax. It's going to be okay. I guarantee you, whoever's watching this right now, I promise you, the sun is going to come up tomorrow. Well, if you're in the UK, you might not see it, but it's going to be up there. But it's, lighten up. It's going to be okay. Whenever you're most stressed, stop and take a deep breath and just say to yourself, it's all going to be okay. It's going to be okay. And lighten up. Don't have to take things so seriously.
Yeah.
Live, love, laugh, learn, and lighten up.
I love that. I have a serious question for you.
Okay.
I ask you to stay serious, please.
Mm-hmm.
How can I become a loser? Do you have some advice?
Yes. Seriously?
Do you have tips to do that?
To do that? Yes. Yeah. Turn on the television, play video games, and just do nothing.
Nothing.
Keep a closed mind. All the things that I said before.
Yeah.
Don't have fun. Have a closed mind. Do not allow yourself to learn. Do not allow somebody to push you. Don't allow yourself to be uncomfortable. Stay complacent, and you will become a loser. Period.
That's great.
And give up. Stop. The amount of people that fail is directly proportionate to the amount of people who give up.
So you have to learn to give up.
Yeah. And unfortunately, we're being taught it every single day, But that's my answer.
It's great. I love that. I will do it.
Don't. Do everything else. Don't do that.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thank you, David.